Hello guys, Troy Francis in London for you, and today I have a question from a viewer of the videos. He said, Troy, Happy New Year, hope you had a fantastic festive period, love the videos, thank you sir. And he said, I want to ask you a question. How do I get a girlfriend in 2023? From Dan, okay? How do I get a girlfriend in 2023? His real name isn't Dan, but I'm not going to reveal that, obviously, for client confidentiality. But it's a good question, and it's a good one to kick off the year with, because I want to sort of go back to basics a little bit with some of the content this year, because we've got a bunch of new subscribers on here, and there's a lot of stuff that may seem very basic, but it bears repeating because it's very important. Okay, so this guy has asked really the most obvious question of all, which is how do you get a girlfriend, which is really what a lot of people come to channels like mine in order to find out. Okay, so what is my response to this? Well, thank you for the question, Dan. My initial response is this: the problem is within the question itself. Okay, if you are reaching out to a content creator, a dating coach, or anybody else really, and asking how do I get a girlfriend, then that is your first problem. Your first problem is one of desire. It's the fact that you want this thing in the first place, and you've got to ask yourself, why do I want it? Why do I want this imaginary girlfriend? Because as far as we know from the couching of the question, he doesn't have a particular woman in mind or anything like that. He just wants a girlfriend, just anybody, just any female with a pulse. He wants to, I guess, get into a relationship with, because I suppose you could also say, well, what do you mean by girlfriend? What does that term actually means? But for the purposes of this, let's just assume, you know, it means what we normally think it means, which is they're dating, they're intimate, they're having a great time together, blah, 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 but they're not actually married or probably, you know, engaged or anything like that. So why do you want this thing so badly? Okay, this imaginary person who doesn't even exist. Presumably Dan imagines that there's going to be some benefit to it for him, okay? Well, fine, but what is that benefit? What is it that he thinks is going to happen? How does he believe that his life is going to improve as a result of having this imaginary girlfriend coming into his life? Okay, well, a lot of us, particularly those of us who are less experienced, let's say, in the ways of relationships, in the ways of the world, we tend to have this idea, this illusion that just being in a relationship, just getting into a relationship with somebody is going to massively improve the quality of our lives. And of course, I probably don't need to tell many of you that that's absolutely not the case. In fact, sometimes, sadly, the opposite can be the case, because when you enter into a relationship with somebody, when you get a girlfriend, it doesn't mean that all your problems suddenly cease and you're living in this paradise, you're living in this Elysium, in this nirvana, and nothing ever goes wrong again. Quite the opposite. If I was being cynical, I might say that your problems are only just beginning when you get that girlfriend. So, you know, and obviously people's experiences may vary, but when, you know, it's hard enough getting through life as a single person on your own, okay? Introduce somebody else into the equation who you've kind of got along for the ride if you're in some sort of relationship with them, or particularly an intimate relationship, and that just becomes all the harder, because you're not only dealing with your own issues, your own problems, your own psyche, your own, you know, mental state, whatever else it is, your wants, your desires, your dreams, your wishes, your fears, all of those things, you're timesing that by 2. You're dealing with somebody else's, and furthermore, you're dealing with the way that those interact with your own manifestations of the same kind. So it's a complicated thing. And on top of that, things change over time, because, you know, you first meet somebody, you're in that first flush of love, it's all wonderful and sexy and romantic and beautiful, and you guys think, oh, this is fantastic, how can I ever leave this person, this, you know, this is it, I'm set for life. And then time passes and things happen, things change, life happens, and maybe you start to get a bit annoyed with one another, or things start to grate, and then the quality of that relationship deteriorates, and so things that you thought you could rely on before, like her affection and support and so on, maybe you can't rely on in the same way that you thought you could, and that becomes demoralizing and difficult, and yeah, you know, it starts to go down into a cycle. So a relationship in itself, getting a girlfriend in itself, is not the answer that you think you're looking for. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to want. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to have. I'm just saying that it's not going to make you happy in and of itself. You have to work on yourself for that if you're going to have any hope of, whatever we mean by happiness anyway. But the next thing that makes this problematic is because if you really, really want something, then the energy that you're putting out into the world is reflective of that, and it's not particularly attractive. And the reason is simply this. Most of us, men and women, tend to want the things that we can't have, or we can't get very easily, or we think we can't get very easily. Okay? So, if you're some bozo, and you're wandering around, and the energy that you are emanating suggests that you really, really, really want to find a relationship, find a girlfriend, then the women that you come into contact with are going to pick up on that. They're going to become aware of it, because you're probably going to make it fairly obvious. But even if you try and conceal it, it's going to come through, and they are going to be less attracted to you as a result, because you are an easily obtainable asset, okay? It's like everyone knows about the price of, say, something like Bitcoin, the halving and so on and so forth. The price goes up. When something becomes less easily attainable, it appears to be more valuable, okay? And that is absolutely the case, unfortunately, in terms of our relationships as well. Because, you meet somebody and they just seem to fall into your lap, and you kind of think, well, if it was that easy, what's the catch here? And it just is going to make you seem less attractive to the prospective women that you meet. Ideally, you want to be this guy who's on his purpose, who's busy, who's got a mission, who's working on other stuff, who's got, a very clear idea of his purpose, where he wants to take his life. And yeah, sure, romance and love and sex and all those things, they're great, but they're not the be-all and end-all for him, okay? And if you're wandering around like, oh my God, I just want to find a girlfriend, then you're not that guy, okay? And you are less attractive in every sense as a result. Another point about this, though, is that there is something, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to get embroiled in some argument about gender roles and all that kind of thing, which is not really the intention of this, but there's something slightly feminized, I would say, about the guy being the one who is trying to find a relationship, make the relationship formal, lock down the girl, the woman, and so on. There's something slightly unmanly in that impulse, I would say. And the reason is because guys, for the most part, are, programmed, as we know, to spread their seed far and wide, so there's that. But even being less crude about it, the guy is meant to be active. The man is meant to be an explorer, okay, a warrior, somebody who goes out and gets things done, okay, somebody who goes out and makes things happen. And what are you saying if you are trying to find a relationship, if you're actively courting a relationship? What you're kind of saying is, I want domesticity, because that's what a relationship means. That's what a girlfriend means, really. It means sitting around on Saturday morning watching Netflix and cooking breakfast together and, and all of those things, which can be very, very nice, don't get me wrong, but ultimately it's a path that's leading you towards domesticity, okay? And domesticity is the absolute opposite of what the self-actualized alpha guy, and I'm saying this in inverted commas, by the way, I'm not glorifying that, but that is the absolute opposite of what that archetype is meant to be. Okay? And you're basically saying, yeah, I want a girlfriend. It's a little bit wet, okay? It's a little bit lame. It's a little bit... You're setting yourself up, as I say, for domesticity, which really is the antithesis of the masculine, the classic masculine archetype. Now, we can argue the toss about that and say, well, that shouldn't be the classic masculine archetype, and why shouldn't guys be domesticated and all the rest of it, and, that's a conversation I'm happy to engage with at another time, but just be aware that you are very much going against that sort of classic masculine archetype, and, on a broad level, on a broad scale, what is it that women are most attracted to? I would suggest it's probably the more masculine, the more typically masculine guy, okay? Again, all this stuff's very contentious in 2023, but you get what I'm saying, all right? So, with all of that said, if you're there saying, well, how do I get a girlfriend? It's the wrong question to be asking. You shouldn't be asking that question in the first place. The question you should ask yourself actually is, why do I want a girlfriend? Okay, what's the urgency, right? What is the urgency on your part, Dan? Because, you know, we live in a world of multiple opportunities, right? We've got all these amazing dating apps. We've got all of these platforms that we can meet people, these social media platforms. We've got relatively inexpensive travel. We've got things like booking.com where we can go and stay in, you know, we can sort out our accommodation in foreign places. There are so many different ways in which we can get around the world, travel around, meet new people and have amazing experiences with them. So you've got to ask yourself the question, well, why do you want a girlfriend in the first place? Okay, that's the first question. And then secondly, after that, you've got to understand that it's not necessarily going to make you happy. Anyway, with all of that being said, thanks very much for watching the video, and thank you very much for supporting me over the last few months and weeks and however long you subscribed. If you want to learn more about how you can improve your dating life, then you can jump on a free call with me. My Calendly link is below, so do that. Please hit subscribe to the channel, and I'll drop me a comment and a like and all that stuff, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye.